Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Hello and welcome everyone to Better on Draft episode 367. Today we will be talking with Adrienne Bank of Cerveceria, Punta, which I may have gotten close to correct enough, at least with my English accent. But before we get to her, hey Wendy, what are you drinking over there?
Well, in true Better on Draft fashion, I am drinking an Old Nation Tart Strawberry M43, but I also have a bramble made with this gin from Distilleria Cozumel, the Eterno, I'm going to butcher this, Navigante? Okay, I think that's right. It's delicious. I wish that I brought a second bottle back when I was there.
It got kind of washed out, so we're going to have to get a picture of that up later at some point, because it looked neat.
Yep.
Today I am drinking a Yummo from Flying Monkeys. It is still short beer name month, and so that is my short beer name. It's a double IPA. And then with us, as I mentioned, is Adrienne Banka of Cerveceria Punta. So hello there, and what are you drinking?
Hi, today I'm actually at the distillery, and I, like Wendy, am drinking a take on a French 75. It's got pineapple, gin, a little bit of lime, and top with champagne. Well, Prosecco in this case.
Okay, so Cerveceria is for brewing. What is the distillery?
So the distillery is kind of another project we have. We've been open almost 2 years now, and we're making gin, rum, and we've been doing some other experiments lately. We have a tamarind vodka and a few other exciting things coming out.
Excellent. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So as our regular listeners will know, you come to us via Wendy. And so I'm going to go ahead and let Wendy get a lot of questions in here. So go ahead, Wendy.
Well, I want to just start out with, why don't you tell us your story a little bit about how you came to be brewing beer in Cozumel?
Okay. So I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan, and I then went to the University of Michigan and then moved to Costa Rica. After living a few years there, I moved to Cozumel, Mexico. I was working for a long time as a scuba diving instructor. And through that, I met my husband, Ricardo. And several years ago, we were kind of always talking about what's the next thing for us, because scuba diving is amazing, but it also isn't necessarily a long-term profession. And a lot of scuba divers kind of think they want to buy a boat, they want to continue in that, but we knew we wanted to do something else. And his family is really entrepreneurial, and they were always kind of pushing us like, you guys should do something for yourselves. Like, that's the best thing in life, is to be your own boss. And so we were always kind of working on scuba diving, but kind of always thinking about this. And we had a longtime dive client who became a really good friend, Dr. Mike Jansen, who lives in Denver, Colorado. And we were hanging out with him, and he had bought a brewery. And so he was always coming down and talking about beer. And we both like to drink beer, but we wanted to be able to keep up kind of with the conversation. So we started more aggressively learning about how do you make beer, different beer styles, everything we could learn about beer. And then he ended up inviting us a couple times to his brewery. And somehow in one of these conversations, it came out like, we should make a brewery in Cozumel. That's what the island needs. There's nothing like that there. And I think for a while, it was just kind of a fun thing. We were always looking at, well, would it be possible? And then one day, my husband, Ricardo, got really serious. We had looked at machines. We had looked at different things. And he was like, are you in or out? And so that was when we really decided, like, this is it. We're going to put everything we have into learning about beer and starting the brewery.
Sorry, I'm trying to send out some posts about the fact that you're on.
No problem. I can keep talking if you want, or you can cut me off at any point.
No, I just think it's awesome. So were you a beer girl before that?
I liked drinking beer. We liked going to different breweries whenever we traveled. I'm from Michigan, so we were always drinking beer every time we went to Michigan. We drank beer. When we would go visit our friends, we would try different beers, different places. And it never occurred to me that it was anything more than something I like to drink, kind of until these conversations started. And then it was like, well, like I thought when we started the business, I didn't think I would be very involved in the brewing process, but as we got more into it, I was more and more interested in everything that had to do with the beer. And so it's been a great opportunity to learn and kind of keep learning. So then once we decided we were serious, we wanted to do this, we started taking as many classes as we could and learning as much as we could. And then we had the good luck of getting to travel to different breweries. And then once we had our machines down here, we would kind of use our scuba diving and tell people, can you come down for a couple days? We can take you scuba diving, we can take you to the beach, but we need to get to work because our machines are not very complex at all. They're really manual, and there was quite a lot of problem solving and engineering that had to happen once they were here to get everything working right.
Rob, you look like you had something.
Oh, sorry.
To add.
Yeah, well, kind of. So, you didn't you said you didn't start as a brewer, but you learned more and more as you were going. So, where are you in that journey now? Are you running batches?
Yeah. So I make all the beer at the brewery now. We had just a series of great luck in this whole project. Mike Jansen invited his brewer down. He ended up becoming a business partner with us at the brewery. And so when we started, he was sending down different brewers he was working with to help us get started and learn. And then for a while, it was kind of like we were trying to follow the steps, work with these people. And then we had other good luck that a brewer who is from Denver, who owns a brewery called Little Machine in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. His name's Brett. He was living in Playa for a few months, just taking some time off from his business. And he found us and just wanted to come over one day. And we were telling him, we're actually like really new in this. And we don't know what we're doing. And he was really helpful in us in making all sorts of procedures, just even cleaning, how to get things working, how to make sure we had started to be able to have a bit of consistency. And so our whole process has been kind of continually getting to meet different people, learn when we can go to the US and learn. I had the great luck this year of a person who I'd met on the island at the distillery one day told me like, hey, did you know I used to own a brewery for a long time? I studied brewing science at UC Berkeley. And so, anytime we can find someone like that, we try to latch on and pick their brain, invite them over to see what it is we're working with. And we've found that people in the brewing community have been very generous with sharing their knowledge. A lot of times there's a lot of different ways you can do things, and people will tell you like, I don't know if this will be helpful or not, but you could try this or you could try this. And so it's been a constant learning whenever we find someone who now, there's people who've been brewing for 40 years in the US that just have so much experience. And a lot of them have started on machines that are more, like ours, where everything's really manual. And then they ended up advancing to really great high-tech machinery, but they have the history. And so they have a lot of great insights always.
It's got to help that you can entice them to come to Cozumel too.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's easy to convince people to want to come take a little vacation and then put them to work for a few days. So, and then the nice thing too is, once someone's seen what we're working with, they're a great resource to be able to go back to and continually be picking their brains because they know the limitations of our machinery. They know our challenges with the climate, with materials, and then they have, they can kind of help with problem solving based on all of that knowledge.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What are some of the challenges that you face brewing on an island?
So I would say our biggest challenge that is an ongoing challenge is just the heat. It's really hot here a lot of the year. And so we don't brew any lagers. That would be really, really hard on our machinery to keep it that cold for that long. And even when we first got our machinery, we had a cooling system. And right away, it was obvious, like, this system's not going to work. It involved a big chiller that was going to sit outside and pump, the cool liquid inside. But if your ambient temperature is, 95 degrees, you lose a lot of cold really quickly. So we actually had the good luck of meeting a man who owns a company called Distro in Cancun, and they serve all the equipment for serving craft beer. And he's from Spain, and a lot of the system they use there is that kegs sit at room temperature, and then they go through a high-powered chiller, and they get served cold. And we were telling him about our problems with our chiller, and he told us, before we had even opened, we were like, we just don't know how we're going to get our beer cold while it's fermenting, because this chiller is not working. It's loud. It's not going to work. And he one day called us and said, I don't know why we couldn't just take one of these chillers that we use to cool the beer down, kind of take out some of the inner workings, put like a submergible pump in that, and have that basically sitting right next to the fermenters and use that for chilling the beer. And he was very convinced that this idea was going to work. So he told us, I'll loan you one, I'll outfit it for you, and if it works, buy it from me. And it turned out to be just like a lifesaver for us. But as it is still, these machines, we're hard on them because they're running all the time. It's dusty here. So they're constantly, like, keeping them working has been a bit of a challenge, but that's been hard. When we first opened, one other challenge we had was just getting the products for making the beer. And we were originally getting everything from the north of Mexico. And then a company opened in Mérida, which is like 4 hours from the mainland. And they import grain, hops, yeast. And so that's been a big help for us because we can order the things. There's a truck that goes directly from Mérida to Cozumel and then gets delivered to us. So that's also helped us out a lot with a fast turnaround.
So now you were the first brewery to open in Cozumel, right?
Yes, we were.
What was that like? I'm sure that was a fun process.
It was. We learned a lot about the licensing and all of the government regulations here. We learned that the paperwork and the bureaucracy is extreme. And throughout the whole process, we were very confident that our location would be able to become the brewery because it's in the tourist zone and it had an alcohol license before. And it was frustrating because the government won't come in and tell you, yes, we will approve your alcohol license, or no, until you have everything ready to go. And they basically do a final check. You go kind of getting all these other licenses, you have to go to Protección Civil and get fire extinguishers, and the gas lines are painted yellow and all of their requirements. And then you go to this other agency and you meet all their requirements, and you go filling off all the requirements and kind of getting all the checklist, but you're still just waiting to get this final approval. So we had everything set, and we were going to the local government looking for this final approval, and they were like, well, you can't make beer in downtown Cozumel. That's industrial, and you're in a tourist zone. And we were like, well, I mean, we're making small batches. Like, it's a 3-barrel system. It is small. And we were like, it's not really industrial at all. And they were like, it is. Making beer is industrial. And they wouldn't say no and they wouldn't say yes. So we were just stuck in this like limbo of like, is this project that we're going to even be able to open? And we had met we didn't know what to do. And then a man we had met who has a craft beer bar in Playa del Carmen had called us and, when are you guys going to open? And we were like, well, at this point, we don't know. It might never happen. And he was like, the governor is a big fan of craft beer, actually. Did you know that? And of course we don't know that. And he knew the assistant to the governor because he had worked with her to get his craft beer bar open. And he recommended us, was able to put us in contact with her and said, take your project to the governor. Like, that might help things out. So my husband, takes all the paperwork, goes to the assistant, gets to go to the governor. And they're like, yes, of course you can open. So they kind of overrode the local government and they gave us this like temporary license with the thought that like, this is your license until the municipal government approves you. But the municipal government did not take kindly to that. They didn't think it was great that we went above their heads. So they kept issuing us these like temporary ones that were expensive that every month we had to renew. And we were like, this is just, not an ideal situation for a new business. But then thankfully there had been an election. They were out of office. The governor's nephew became the mayor. And so we were able to get our permanent licenses and and finally kind of be rid of that headache. So, but it was hard because they really couldn't understand the concept of making the product in the same location that you would serve it.
That makes sense. I'm sure that we have some similar issues here when it comes to the bureaucracy, depending on where you're at. So
Yeah. And, it was really paperwork heavy. It was constantly, especially with alcohol licenses, they were constantly making you get these like background checks, and then they were only good for 30 days. So then the 30 days had gone up, so you had to go get another one. And there was it was just a big headache. But when we first opened, we actually didn't have our production alcohol license. We were kind of going on the Mexico, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. We had a license for serving alcohol in open containers. And we had the really good luck that same year we opened, the governor was kind of looking at the situation. And at the time, there were 9 craft breweries in the state. And he was like, none of you guys have got it all together. Like, you guys have a distribution license, but you don't have an open container license. And you have this and you have this. And so he said, I will give you all like 1 year to get it in order. And if you're missing any licenses, you can buy them at a 90% discount. So it was quite a lot more paperwork. You had to kind of be certified that it was a product 100% made in the state, different certifications. And then once you did all that, you were eligible to get this license. But I think kind of like all government things, he promised this thing, and then all the people you need they weren't really super available to help with this. And in this state, we're on the island, and then Cancun is to the north of the island, and Chetumal is right at the border with Belize, and that's actually the capital of the state. But most of the government people have an office in Chetumal, and they have an office in Cancun. So for what felt like months, my husband would get on the bus, go to Chetumal. Nope, they're not at these offices today. He'd take the bus to Cancun. Oh, they're gone for the day. And he chased these people down and said, I'm going to get this production license, and I'm going to get it this year. And so finally we were able to get everything.
I just find it amazing that you guys just put your mind to it and we're like, we're going to do this and we're going to make it happen. And now not only do you have the brewery, you just opened up the distillery.
Yes. So part of the good luck, when the governor made this deal, we had the forethought. We thought, we're going to eventually expand the brewery. This is for sure. And I don't know why we would have really thought that when we were just getting open, but we decided we want 2 of these production licenses. We're not letting this opportunity get away. This is never going to happen again. And you couldn't just buy the licenses. You actually had to have like a ready to go location for them. But the same company that sells all the beer serving equipment, the owner was trying to import kegs from Spain to sell here. And he couldn't do it because he didn't have a production and distribution license. So he had this warehouse where his machinery, where he wanted to be getting kegs in and out. So we said to him, let us get this extra production and distribution license and let us put it here. And in 5 years or 7 years, if we want to expand, then you can you can figure it out. So we got this production license, and then we just kind of saw how working here was with just how we decided we don't really want to expand the brewery. We love our little location. We love making different recipes all the time. We like hanging out with the people who come in there. And we met people in Playa del Carmen who went the other route. They made really big breweries. They're distributing, and they spend their whole day driving around, dropping off 24 packs of beer to every single restaurant. And so right away we were like, well, I don't think we want to expand the brewery. It would take a huge upgrade on our equipment. But then we were thinking always about all these challenges with the heat. And my husband met all these brewers who are now distilling. And one day he came to me and he was like, you know what we need to do? We need to open a distillery. And he was like, you make the beer, you have your toys. I want like my own set of toys. And so he started going to the US, taking all these distilling classes. And then we opened distillery at Cozumel almost 2 years ago. So
I will be honest, I love that location. When Adam and I went, I wanted to stay.
Yeah.
we had to go because I'm a beer girl, so I really wanted to try the brewery across the street. And they were good. They were very friendly, but that location where that distillery is, it's just so inviting. Like if I was on the island, I would be there all the time.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, it's been it was this location for a long time was like a breakfast lunch restaurant, and they moved out because they bought a property like on the exact same corner but one block south. And so when we saw this open up, we had been looking with this idea of this distillery, and when we saw it, we were like, that's a great spot. Like it's an amazing location. So I'm glad you like it.
It is. It's beautiful. And so I have the gin, the Eterno Navigante. I think I said that right the first
Yes,
time.
you did. Uh-huh.
Okay, so that was really good. It was so good that I brought some home with me. What else do you make there?
We're making, right now, we have 3 different kinds of rum. We have a white rum, an aged rum, and a spiced rum in the gin.
So let's go a little playful here for a little bit. What is
Okay.
what's the favorite beer that you make?
I don't know. That's a tough one because I think when something new comes out, if it turns out kind of how we were hoping, it becomes a favorite, for a little while. And then we're like, we're over this. Like, what's the next new thing? And last summer, we went to Michigan to visit my family. And Ricardo and I rode our bikes to downtown Muskegon, and we went to Rake Brewing Project, and which I had never been to in the location it's in. And we drank smoothie sours during the day, and we're like, wow, this is really good. And we had done a sour like during COVID, and it was like probably like all sours, it was kind of received hit or miss from people. But we were like, this is just so refreshing. We need to do a sour. And so all year I've been wanting to do a sour, but we had a hard time getting the right ingredients and then just the time. And it just kind of kept getting put off too, because we can't get the same fruit purees like people can get in the US. So we were trying to figure out a fruit. Were we going to pasteurize, like kind of clean up our own fruit? And so finally we made it. And so right now we have a passion fruit sour. And I think that's my current favorite just because it felt like a long time coming from idea to production to having it coming out of the tap. So
Is that the one that you guys just advertised on your?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, damn, I wish I was going sooner.
Yeah, and
I'm not gonna lie.
we liked it so much the first day that we convinced my family we have to go back, and we went back like 3 times. And the one night the owner was there, and we were telling him how it's so good, and then we told him, we have a brewery. And he's like, well, do you want to come back? And here's how I do it. And this is how I do this. And this is how I do this. So I had made little notes. And so I felt like it was inspired from this trip to see him to Michigan and kind of all the way people just share that. And he was like, the easiest way is to do this and do it this way. And so that was a really fun one for us.
That's awesome. It's named after Michigan, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called the Michigander.
Yeah. I'm like, I wonder why I know I meant to ask you about that anyways, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I usually like to leave naming it to the guys behind the bar, to Jose and Freddie, because I every once in a while I have an idea, but that one I know exactly what its name should be.
That's awesome. Even though you don't really expect passion fruit in Muskegon a whole lot.
No, and he didn't have passion fruit in it. He had what he told me he was doing each keg differently. He was doing the fruit directly in the keg. And so we had gone the one day and it was like strawberry, lemon, I don't remember. And then we went back like 2 days later and we're like, where is that thing? And he was like, oh no, today I've got this one. And so that's what we actually did with us. We get between 300 and 330 liters per batch. And so we put it in 60 liter kegs, and each one's actually, we've got 2 passion fruits. We've got a mango, we've got a guava, and then although that one we had some problems getting the puree thin enough, so then we mix it with passion fruit. So we've got a bunch of different stuff coming out in the next couple weeks as those kegs get drained.
So now I was talking to somebody, to a brewery in Nassau, and I thought it was really fascinating because she was like, she told me she was having problems getting stuff, and she's like, but I made this one beer and it was like from a tree that she had in her yard.
That's That is
Are
fascinating.
you able to do stuff like that, or are there laws that prohibit that? Like,
I'll be honest, I don't even know if there's laws that prohibit it, but I definitely know that the health inspectors don't know enough to know anyway. Like they come in and when they come in, they inspect the bar, they inspect the kitchen, and they will ask to open the fermenters. And the guys, if we're not there, they're like, you can't open that. Like, you can't stick your head in that. And they kind of leave that alone. Like, they don't seem to worry. Like, they're not really paying much attention to it, I think. So
I just thought that was amazing. She was like, yeah, I was having a hard time getting these things, but she's like, but then I realized I have this tree in my yard. I can't remember which fruit it was at this point.
Interesting.
But she's like, yeah, I just took it from the trees in my yard. I'm like, oh, okay. That is so very
cool.
resourceful.
It's locally sourced.
We've done things with citrus peel, and something I've seen living here and in Costa Rica is growing up, you go to a grocery store in the US and there's yellow lemons, there's green limes, there's oranges, there's grapefruits, maybe tangerines. And here there's a lot of in between, it seems like they haven't really worked on breeding the trees to give these same things. So sometimes they'll tell you this is a sour or a bitter orange, or this is a this or this, and there's all these different things, and sometimes they're bumpy on the outside. And one day I thought I bought limes and I cut into it and it was the color and the taste of a tangerine but the size of a lime. So I think there's a lot of so we've used different things like that, because I think for me that was kind of a whole new world of just this range of citrus fruit that is definitely not uniform in size or shape or even really taste. So
I think it was an Atamoya when I was in Brazil last, and it was just spectacular. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. And even for us here, if you go to one of the big chain grocery stores, they pretty much stick to kind of the main things. Maybe you can get bitter oranges or certain things sometimes, but if you really want to find some of this different citrus fruit, you have to go to the little stores, or even sometimes on the island, people will cross a big truck and they'll have, a truckload of this fruit and they'll be selling it and then it's gone. So
cool. We were talking about your recipes. I would like to, and Wendy asked if you have a favorite. Is there one that you find yourself going back to? And also, do you have standard house beers?
So we don't have standard house beers, and it's a couple of reasons. One is we try to stick with our same provider because it's so simple. We order the things, they come on a truck, then they get delivered on the moto and they're here. But part of the problem is he sometimes runs out of things. So sometimes we'll think this is a really nice recipe, let's do it again. And we call him and he's like, I don't have those hops. I'll get them back in a month. And we're not keeping a lot of stock on hand for us because we don't have good storage space. And kind of why, if the turnaround time is 3 days from ordering to receiving, why even store it ourselves when he has all this storage space? So we don't have we don't really have anything that's always on there, but we have 6 lines. We always have at least 1 or 2 IPAs. We try to have something dark because we found Mexicans just love dark beer. Even in the hottest days, they'll drink it.
I agree with them.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's something about a 95-degree sunny day walking in off the street and a stout not being what looks good to me. And then we always have something lighter and then some other stuff. So sometimes we'll want to go back to the same recipe, but then the ingredients aren't available. So that kind of keeps us, I think, from doing the same thing over and over. But,
have you been educating people in your community on different styles?
Yeah, we when we opened, we were kind of going based on our perception of things, but we were like, what we know is that Mexicans love beer. So we would ask them, and they weren't necessarily drinking craft beer, but then we would look at places, and if the craft beer was double or more of the price of a Corona or a Modelo or a Dos Equis, you can kind of understand why you would be like, well, what's the point? And so I think for us, one of our big advantages was we don't bottle it, we don't can it, so it's really easy to give samples. And we found when we first opened, people would sit down at the bar, local people, and they would be looking at the menu, and they clearly didn't know they didn't know the terms, they didn't know anything. And they would say I want an IPA, because they would hear pale ale and think that was going to be similar to like Corona. And what we found was really helpful was being able to give samples, and then people would be able to see what they liked. And definitely like ambers and dark beers were like right away something that our local customers like kind of relate, like that was flavors that were familiar to them and that they liked. And so we still have people come in, they'll tell us like they don't have a clue. And so now we kind of ask them, well, what kind of beer do you like? And like, let us give you a few samples. But we are happy because we see so many of our local clients now. When we first opened, because we sell Corona and Modelo, and when we first opened like to now, we pretty much sell the exact same amount of those and way more of our beer. So like, it's nice to see that like our local customers have embraced our product.
That's great.
So, speaking of samples, we have a long-standing disagreement on our show about flights. So, are you pro-flight or anti-flight?
I think I'm pro-flight based on kind of looking at our clientele. I'm not a fan of necessarily serving them. That can be kind of a thing.
That makes sense.
Right? Like, because we have these cute little 4-ounce cups, and like it's, it's hard to get not too much foam in them. But I think it is a nice thing for people to be able to try everything. And maybe being, for us, we have our local clients, but then it's also a destination, right? So people come and they're maybe going to come once. If they're on a ship, this is it. And so having a flight for them is like a nice way to see what we have. By what side are you, Wendy?
I'm pro-flight.
We both are pro-flight.
But I'm also cognizant of you should be wary of when you order a flight. Like if there's 30 people waiting in line behind you, don't order a flight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like suck it up and get a sample or just get a drink and be done with it. But
so as a consumer, I'm pro-flight because whenever, around here, we always kind of around like we're not just on an island physically, like we're on an island of information. It takes a long time for things to get here. And so whenever we travel, especially to the US or Canada, we want to try as much beer as we can, but there's actually only so much beer I can try. And the flight is like a great way to be able to get a lot of beer, like sample a lot of beer without having to drink that much. And
that's exactly why I'm pro-flight.
Yeah.
But I also understand what a pain in the ass it is to serve it. So I do try to be very cognizant of that and make sure that I'm ordering at appropriate times and not like during the middle of your rush.
I think Ken has pulled us more towards get the flight, but be aware of what's going on. Just be aware that it's a lot of work for the server. It's
right.
It's going to slow things down.
Yeah.
And don't be like, if it takes them longer to pour a flight, don't be pissed about it. Like you're the one that asked for 6 little tiny beers,
Right.
So
yeah, I guess maybe there, but I haven't heard people complain about the time of it. But yeah, it is. I mean, it does take longer to serve them. So
yeah. It takes longer to clean all those glasses too. Well, depending on how you're cleaning your glasses.
That too.
Yeah.
So what? I'm trying to think of how to put this. What is the? I'm sure you probably never thought this was what your life was going to be.
You know what? That's funny. No, definitely not. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, wow, how did I get here? And I think it's definitely been kind of my life just kind of like walking in the door when an opportunity opens and seeing what comes next. And when we opened the brewery, we had read something. My husband's into a lot of this kind of like mental power and stuff, and he had read something about like you shouldn't tell people your dreams because like so many people will just tell you how it's not possible. So we kind of started working on this, and we didn't tell a lot of people until we were kind of like in it. And I remember being at dinner one night, and a guy we knew was kind of like, you're gonna make everyone go blind. You guys don't know what you're doing. Like, and we're like, well, first of all, that's not a big problem. And like kind of, it is funny to think like the things you're kind of capable of figuring out, and just part of it we had a client recently tell me something and it really stuck with me. He's like, when you open a business to be successful, you need 3 things. He's like, you need a good idea, you need to work hard, and you need to have luck. And I feel like that really was like the story, like if one of those things wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have been here. But I'm really thankful because we work really hard, but I love going in there. Like I have such a good time hanging out with people, hanging out with the team that we work with, and kind of always thinking about what next.
So I was going to follow that up with what is your favorite part of doing this, but I think you already did that.
Well, I can tell you my least favorite part for sure, washing kegs. That job is the worst. You can turn music on, you can turn a podcast on, but that job is no fun. But I like being in there. Like, it's fun for us that we're always changing the recipe. It's nice when people come back and I'll tell you what's new. And even for us, like our machines are so manual. And so the actual brewing days, it's kind of a pain. Like it's really, really hot. Our mash tun, like the door is not lined up with the false bottom. So at the end, you are scooping the wet grain out of there, like into the door. And it's all a pain, but when you have like a product and then you get to share it with people and kind of see people having fun, that's really been like kind of my favorite part. So
that's awesome. So you also there's at least one more brewery that's opened up since you've opened.
Yes.
Is it kind of similar to the atmosphere for the brewing industry in the United States where you're supporting each other and working together and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. So the other brewery on Cozumel is called Kuzam, and they're actually here across the street from the distillery. They're our neighbors over here on just the other side of the plaza. And it's actually a woman from Ohio and her husband who grew up here.
Totally different.
Right. So they're about our age, and kind of when we started the project, we were really obsessed with we wanted to be the first brewery on the island, but we always knew there would be another one. And so they had been clients they used to come to the brewery, and then they told us one day, like we always knew because they had told us, like, this is our dream to start a brewery. And then they told us one day, like, hey, we're opening a brewery. And I think like our feeling was like, wow, I'm so happy that the other people who started a brewery are another small business, not just like some massive company that kind of saw like, we'll just come in and do this kind of gimmicky thing to get for tourists. And so they have been kind of, they go through the same struggles we do. Sometimes even if your shipment's supposed to be super fast, if the weather's off and the ferries aren't running, and if the power goes out, it messes up your beer and all these things. And so they've been great neighbors and good friends. And we always tell people, like, if you like beer, you can definitely drink beer at both places. Like, this is not like the island's big enough to have 2 small breweries. So
for sure. They were walkable too. So you could do your own little mini pub crawl.
Right. Well, and it's actually like our mill broke in November. And we were trying to get parts for it, and we were like, we need to mill some grain. And so they actually, they loaned us their mill a bunch of times while we ended up getting a new one. But so it's been nice to have it. And, we had read in the Craft Brewers Association, to a certain point, more breweries is actually good for both people, because people walk by that and they think like, oh, I didn't even know Cozumel has a brewery. And then they Google it and they're like, oh, it has 2. And I think beer fans, as you know, Wendy, you were here for a day and you went to both, like they'll find both of them.
And I went to the International Beer Bar, so
it's a busy day.
We did all 3. Yeah, you gotta get it in when you're there. You never know when you're gonna get back. So whenever I'm on the island, I try to hit any island. I try to hit every brewery I can.
Yeah.
Which isn't always easy on an island.
Right. Yeah, the nice thing is we're both in downtown, so it's easy to walk between them. And
I greatly appreciate a walkable brewery tour.
Yes.
It's just so much easier.
Right?
Yeah, the day I was there was very hot, so I'm pretty sure that my friend got quite a few underhanded curses from me as we were walking, because he'd be like, 1 more block. And then we get there and he'd be like, it's 2 more blocks. And I'm like, no, you just said 1 more.
I thought you were going to say he got a taxi. And I was like, that's fine too.
No, actually, we did talk about it, but I'm like, no, I can walk that far. Come on.
Yeah.
But it was very hot. And
in a shady winter day, it would have been a much more pleasant walk.
But I did it. I didn't blame him for it. I just did it.
Yeah, well, come back.
Sometimes you just need to complain. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to complain while I do it.
Yeah, I get that.
So I actually went on my very first cruise. I went to Key West with my friend, and when we got to the port, nothing was open because it was like 8:00 in the morning. So originally we talked about getting on the hop on, hop off tour and going to all the different places. And she decided on that day that we weren't going to do that. And we walked all the way to the pier and the southernmost point and all that stuff. And we get like 2 miles to where we wanted to go. And I'm like, why isn't anything open? I was like yelling, and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, well, the southernmost point is like 2 blocks that way. I'm like, we're still not there.
That surprises me because I feel like in Cozumel, like if a cruise ship got here at 6 a.m, they'd be like, open the bars and restaurants right next to it at 6 a.m. Those people need their party. Like,
you would think that would be the case, but it was not. They didn't open for a long time. We walked all the way down there. We walked over to the southernmost point, and I found a cart that had coconut water. And I thought they were going to, open the coconut, pour it in a glass, and give us the glass. No. They drilled a hole in the coconut and shoved a straw in it and handed us a 3-pound coconut.
Now you got like a 5-pound coconut.
So now I'm doing this walk, and I got fucking weights to do with me. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So that was
At least in Vegas, they give you that strap so you can attach it to your neck.
That was my very first experience. And it obviously the day ended up better. We hit the breweries and went to a bunch of different bars once they opened. But I was like, why are we even here if it's not open? I don't get off the boat at 8:00 anymore in Key West.
Lesson learned.
Right?
Well, if you ever come to Cozumel at 8 a.m, I'll just meet you at the brewery and we can have beer.
I will keep that in mind.
Sounds great.
Do you guys look at the cruise ship schedules and stuff like that to see? Do you pay attention to that?
We didn't used to. We never. What we found for a long time were people who came off the cruise ship were maybe people like you who are dedicated to the craft of brewing. And a lot of times maybe we would get like a Facebook message or an email, I'm going to be on a cruise and I just want to confirm your hours. And so those people would show up. But
they're smart.
Last year, a guy named Paco who runs like a company called Tropical Tours on the island came to us and was like, hey, like I want to make this tour from people with the cruise ship to come to the brewery. And we had always been really hesitant of that because like our vision were these like drunk party buses, and the brewery's a small place. We were like, the last thing we want is like 40 people coming in and just like kind of bothering our normal clients and really just coming in, being really drunk and leaving and not even spending money or even really bringing much value to us. And he was kind of like, no, I have this other vision. And it would be like a 12 people max, kind of come in, get a trial of beer. And so we last year had been really slow on the island all summer. And we were like, well, we'll give it a try. And it's actually been a really great experience because some of the people tell us like in my comfort zone, I would prefer to be on a tour because I know that they're going to get me back on time. And that is like my thing. And so we were really nervous about kind of just like, would it change the dynamic and the feel of the business? But it's been really, really positive. The people who come in just want to have some beers, and we tell them like a little bit about who we are and how we do the things. And then, so it's been really nice. So we are a little more aware of the cruise ship schedules now than we ever used.
It sounds similar to one of my favorite beer bus tours. One of their stops, they have this section of the I'll say restaurant, but it's just their drinking area that's usually set aside for the buses, and it fits. It's usually 12 to 16 people. And when the bus is incoming, they go fill pitchers, and then they have little tasting glasses out there, and they guide people through the beers as they pour from the pitchers to the people, and then they tell the story. I mean, that was just the best experience.
That is exactly the dynamic of us. Like they have their little 4-ounce cup, but because when he first proposed this, he's like, "We can serve them a flight," and I was like, "We can't serve 12 people a flight at once. Like, have you ever served a flight?" Like, Like I was like, that's a terrible idea. And then he was like, well, what about in a picture? And it's nice because we just give them a little background of who we are, and a lot of them are people who, at least one person in the group is like a big beer enthusiast. So we kind of tell them just a little bit of how we got started, how we got everything here, and then we talk them through like a little sample. And it's been actually really, really, really fun. So.
Well, excellent. That's my favorite style.
Yeah. We were like, because, we just had this vision of those like, balloon animal people who are just so, so drunk. And like, we have some regulars who like to sit at the bar and just relax. I'm like, I just don't want to scare those people away. And so this has actually been kind of the perfect way to open up to that.
That's an awesome idea. So what are some of the things coming next for you?
We were just talking about that today. Some of it is like not very exciting from, a customer point of view. Like there's some kind of changes we want to make in some of the cooling system. But then for a long time, we have had 6 beers on tap, and we have 3 fermenters and a bright tank. So in the high season, we are like on a pretty strict schedule of like beer out, beer in. And we were kind of like, our low season is right now, it's the rainy season now, and then things will be the slowest in September, October, and then pick up in November. And we were like, well, what if we really, really worked as hard as we can in September, October? Could we get 8 beers on tap? And could we expand, get some more refrigerators back there? And so that's kind of our goal for the next couple months, is see if that's possible to expand and have a few more things going on. So.
That's fun. So what about food? What do you guys got going on for food there when people come to visit?
So we have our setup is well, you've been there, Wendy, but Rob, for you, it's kind of a long, narrow building. When you walk in, the bar's on the right, there's tables on the left, and then past the bar is the brewing equipment. Then we have a small patio, and then the kitchen. We have a brick oven, so we sell pizza. We sell baked empanadas, salads, and kind of a mix of like bar food. Our biggest hit in the kitchen is we sell lionfish pizza, which I don't know if you've had this ever, Wendy.
I have not.
Okay, so lionfish are an invasive species in the Caribbean. There's a couple different theories of how they got into the Caribbean like 15 years ago, whether it was like people dumping them because they were eating everything in the aquarium, or in hurricanes, aquariums breaking, or whatever it is. But the scientists who study this believe that there's like all the lionfish in the Caribbean can be traced back to like 12 original lionfish that got in. They reproduce like crazy, and they can live at like depth changes, salinity changes, temperature changes. And so they've just been a plague all over. And so in our experience as scuba divers, we found like just overfishing it's a reality. Like there used to be a lot more groupers, there used to be a lot more things. And so when we opened, we knew if there's one fish we want to use lionfish, because they need to be controlled. And if, you can pay the fishermen to bring in lionfish instead of grabbing teeny tiny snappers, that's great. So we were always kind of like, what are we going to do with this lionfish? And one day when the guys in the kitchen was like, let's put them on a pizza. And we were like, fish on a pizza? That's absurd. But it's our best seller. People love it. And it's like a nice light white meat. So if you're ever here, you should definitely try this. I don't know if it's the only place that you can get it, but definitely there's not a lot of places making lionfish.
I'll just say I like anchovies on pizza. That is a fish on a pizza.
Right? So
True.
This is not whole. It's filleted. It's just the white meat on it.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a big fish in the middle of the pizza.
Definitely something to add to my bucket list for the next time I come out.
Yeah. It's we never knew it would take off like this, but there'll be people that'll come in there and they'll be like, "Is this the lionfish pizza spot?" And we'll be like, "Yeah." And they'll be eating. They'll be like, "What do you do with those machines?" And we're like, "We make beer." And they're like, "I had no idea." So, I'm not sure what is bringing us more fame sometimes on the island, the lionfish pizza or the beer.
Hey, everyone has to have something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, you got to have variety, right?
Yes, exactly. So.
I have a question. You said that you were a diver.
I am.
And still are a diver, I assume?
I still am. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So drinking and diving. How soon after drinking can you go diving?
So usually you pretty much the rules like you don't want to drink before you go diving that day. I hear a lot of stories of these like old school divers who like rolled out of the bar straight to the dock. That's probably not a good idea. I would say if you are a diver and you want to drink beer, just make sure you're drinking a lot of water too. So
Okay.
definitely hydration is like a key thing to staying safe. So.
And then the opposite. So how long after diving do you have to wait till you go drinking?
Oh, I mean, you could crack a beer open on the boat ride back. I think, but yeah, like it's probably for every beer you drink a glass of water too, or two.
Right. I think that's a good rule of thumb in life, anyway.
Yeah, especially when you're diving, but maybe always.
Right.
But definitely, dehydration is a major part of decompression sickness. So.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes even more sense then.
Yeah.
I had it on me. So do I still get to dive, or do you still get to dive?
I went diving on Wednesday. I don't dive as much. When we first opened the brewery, we like spent all of our money. So my husband was working full time at the brewery, and I still worked in diving in the morning, and then would work at the brewery in the evening. And after that, when we finally said like this is it, like we can dedicate ourselves 100% to the brewery, I was really tired of diving. And then, when things were new, we needed to be there all the time. Like it was our baby. And then we got to this really great point where I was like, wow, the staff know what they're doing. They've been here a long time. They know how to change the CO2 tanks. If there's anything not quite right with the beer, they know exactly what to do. So then I got a little bit more into diving again on occasion. And then we have a daughter. So then when I was pregnant, when she was a baby, not very much diving. And so now we have the distillery too. So on occasion I go, but not as much as I used to. Maybe I'd like to go a little more, but it's okay. And when I go, I love it a lot.
So you can dive all year there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The conditions are good all year, and the water temperature changes just a couple degrees, so you can go all year. But definitely, there's been some kind of like cold, Cozumel cold, 70 degrees, windy, rainy days where I look outside and I'm like, glad I'm not a diver anymore.
Oh, it's 60 degrees with cold rain here right now.
Well, it's like 92 degrees here with like 100% humidity.
I went out on my back porch with flip-flops on, and my toe ended up in a puddle. And I was like, holy crap, that's like ice water. What is going on? It's at least spring. Come on.
Well, we're going to Michigan at the end of June, so I hope it can warm up a little bit by then.
Oh, yes. It should be by then. I hope. Dear God, I hope.
I think that we are about wrapping up. Wendy, do you have more questions that you wanted to get in there?
Oh, I always have lots of questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do you want me to start with the final question?
Well, sure. We always end our show with some final questions that may or may not be beer related. Tend to be fun. So go ahead, Wendy. What do you got?
Let's see. You probably don't have a lot of time for it. Was there any like TV show that you're like obsessed with right now?
Okay. I don't know if I'm obsessed with it, but it's like my guilty pleasure. At the end of the day, if I'm cleaning up the house or something, I love to put on Below Deck. Man,
I do like that show.
Putting on like the drama, mindless entertainment.
I find that show fascinating. Actually,
me too.
My grandma's caregiver that comes in twice a week for me, she will have it on every now and then. That's how I started watching it. And like she went to turn it off when she left one day, and I'm like, no, I have to see how it ends.
And I guess for me, like I feel there's enough similarities between those yachties and like the divers where I'm like, I could know these people. These could definitely be people I've known.
Right? I could never know any of those people, but there's no way that we're renting a yacht to go anywhere, but maybe one day. You never know. Anyways, Rob, what you got?
The podcast is being filmed on a luxury yacht.
Right. One day. Oh, we should work on that, Rob.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
We could do an island tour and go to all the different breweries on the different islands.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's even better than a beer bus.
Right. True. A beer boat. Oh, that's awesome. Now my wheels are turning.
Yeah, we could make this work. You live in a vacation destination. You say you go back to Michigan, but you have family there. Where do you go for vacation?
That's funny. It seems like in the last couple of years, it's mostly been Michigan. My husband's Mexican, and his family live in kind of central Mexico. And his sister lives in Germany, and so when her and her husband and family come, they always like to visit different parts of Mexico. So thankfully, like, we've had a lot of great times in the last couple of years visiting Baja, the Pacific side of Mexico, central Mexico. But unfortunately, or not unfortunately, one of my top vacation destinations right now is Michigan.
That's not so bad.
At least there's good beer.
Yeah, and in the summer it's amazing. Like for us, it gets really hot here, so it feels just like paradise in the summer.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are parts of Michigan, at least, where you can do stuff with the snow. You can't do anything with the snow when we have it here in Indiana.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, so the snow here, it never sticks around long enough to bother having like cross-country skis or even ice skates. It's unusual for stuff to be frozen long enough to ice skate on it.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
We went to Michigan for Christmas this year, and I think that was like the perfect amount of winter for me. I was like, it snowed, we went outside, we played, let's go home.
That's right.
This last winter was very nice for a lot of people. Well, Muskegon, though, they always get a lot more cold and snow than we do.
Yeah, we went, and the first day was, I don't know, the first couple days we were there was beautiful. It was like sunny, it was 30s, it snowed. So you're like, and I was like, this isn't as bad as I remember. Like, winter's not that bad. And then it was like high of 9 and gray, and I was like, get me out of here. And at noon, my daughter was like, Mom, when is it going to be daytime? I was like, it's not like daytime for a long time.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, those short days.
From the mouths of babes.
Excellent. Well, Adrienne, it was wonderful having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you have anything that you want to say or promote before we end the show?
No, just I hope anyone who does find their way to Cozumel comes, visits us, let me know that you heard us. And we always love to get to meet new people and share our project and with them. So thank you so much for letting me come tell our story a little bit.
Well,
absolutely. And where can they find you on the socials?
We're under Cerveceria Punta Sur, Facebook, Instagram. We have a website that we don't do a great job keeping it updated, so don't trust the beer list on it, but the location and the hours are right. So.
Excellent. That's where I saw a picture of the lionfish, too.
Yeah.
We were going to order lunch when we were there with you, but we were chatting so much that we forgot. Isn't that crazy?
I'm sorry about that.
No, it was an awesome conversation. It was the highlight of our trip. So,
well, thank you so much. It's really such a pleasure to meet all different people. And
good, excellent. All right, and with that, I think that we will end our show, and we are going to end it like we always end it. Whatever you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft.
Cheers.
Good night.